of drawing in practice is that, sorry, I've actually got COVID at the moment, so I'm in my bedroom, which is why the background's a bit weird. But it's a very mild case, so I'm not feeling too bad. Computers really take over our professional lives, and I use a lot of computers. But I find that computers make it consumers, and I've taught a lot of students, and trying to show me their design on a computer, you can almost not have a conversation with them because it's just so hard to talk about the drawings. It's best to just do some printouts. SketchUp I find much easier to converse with because it works at the same speed, I think, as a designer. But drawing allows us to be collaborators, and I think the benefit of drawing is that you're able to sit down with people and tease out ideas and thoughts through the drawing process. And certainly I can't think without drawing, and I can't really draw without thinking. That's not totally true. I can draw without thinking because I'm a bit of a doodler, and but sometimes the thoughts aren't very well formed. They're just sort of idle thoughts that you've got an idea about something and you draw it. So so the challenge we have, and for me, this would be something that you should be thinking about for your project. Total's told me where it is. I don't know exactly where it is in the city, but when you go look around, you should probably find places that are more memorable. And I guess as an urban sketcher, you only draw things that are sort of interesting to you and memorable in some way. They're not sort of average nothing things, although sometimes they can produce quite nice drawings. So, and sometimes when in fact, we could do it now, Total. Maybe we could say, where is the place that you can recall that's really quite special as a place? Total, do you want to get one person to put their hand up and say what their special place is?
Okay. Anyone says the special place?
Are they all too quiet? Are they?
This is a Swedish course. Should I choose, or anyone brave for the club?
I can choose. I have a special place up in the mountains in Sweden.
Okay.
Where we used to spend winters and one Christmas, I think, when I was smaller. It's a log cabin.
Yeah. No, I know all about those sort of cabins. It's interesting because you associate the experience with those places. Is it a nice looking building? Is it a nice location with nice trees and views?
Yes, it's a very beautiful location.
Yeah. So the thing is, could you draw that from memory, the view from your living room looking out to the view, or could you? So this is the question: is what do we recall? And when we think about our experiences and the places, how do we describe them to people? And how can we record them and draw them? And I'll explain what this means. So these are some of my favourite places. None of them are actually mountain huts in Sweden. I'm sorry about that. Do you have mountains in Sweden? I didn't know you had mountains in Sweden. I thought you had farms and plains. But have mountains in Norway. But these are, and you might recognise some of these places. None of them are actually in Sweden. There's some Oslo ones, which you might know for those who've been to Oslo. There's Lisbon, Rome, Sandefjord, Seville, Miami, London. So these are some places that I find quite interesting. And as I've sort of said with your mountain hut, is that you might have an image of that mountain hut, and it might be the view looking from low, looking up. As you arrive, you might be coming from a lower point and you come up through the trees, and normally you can't park your car next to the house. You've got to park it away, and then you carry things. Maybe you've got to walk up some little steps that are in the rocks or something. So that experience, what's the best view of that to explain the experience of being there? And so these are three places, Seville, and Rome. But you need to be able to have a vocabulary and explain them with words, what the place is and the quality of the place. And this is where the design thinking drawing layer comes in, is that can you then do me a diagram of that quality? So when I do my workshops on this topic, we're saying, well, how do we, from that photograph, what's the quality that you can see? What's the quality of your house in the mountains? How do you describe its quality? Is it close in, far away? Is it a perspective? Is it a plan? Is it a cross section? So that's a challenge for whoever that was, Todor, to that's your homework for the rest of the class to to come and try and do a couple of drawings to show Todor, you know, what the quality of that place is.
Exactly. That is why we were talking, because we were talking the future projects and about also the scale of the project. And this is a really good example, because the project, you can see that's a square, you know, it's kind of a plan. Where when you look at the Pantheon, you know, it's an inside view of the Pantheon. So it's a vista. So it's part of the vista. And the other one is also you can see it's the courtyard that matters. So in your project, you also have to choose. Do you want to work with the whole area as a kind of a master plan? Do you like to work with the vista? Or do you like to work, for example, with the street space? Do you want to do it more from a social perspective in terms of ethnography, or do you want to work more from a design perspective with sketching and so on? So we have a variety of methods in the course, Peter, and this is a fantastic example to show that also sketching can be used for different perspectives, and both from a diagrammatic perspective, as a photography and as a description, because this is what all the three elements that you would need to kind of be a good urban designer. And Peter kind of puts this in a context of communication. You don't draw it for yourself, but to communicate the design with the future either customers, municipalities, citizens, or who is all kind of say stakeholders and actors in the planning processes. I give you a follow to you. Sorry, Peter, for a bit of I used your slide to describe our project.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so, but I've drawn this building here. This is Plaza Alfalfa, mentioned before. Very nice building, the yellow building. And I remember sitting down with my wife and someone we just met who was from Australia, and we sat and drew and drank tea and had a nice lunch and had a beautiful experience. And then in workshops, this is a person in London explaining how that layering of space in that Seville drawing might work. So that's her drawings trying to explain that space. And then these are some photographs of other people in London grappling with these photographs and trying to use sections or plans or whatever to try and unearth what the qualities are. And it's not a straightforward process. And sometimes town planners do my courses and I get a lot of blank stares. But it's just something I'm used to doing because I think through drawing. And so finding a way to express an idea through drawing is a really critical skill. So hopefully this will work. We'll see how it goes. So this is Plaza Alfalfa. So this is a little time lapse of a number of sort of drawings of the principles. I was really taken by the tree and the shadows and the blue sky. The blue sky in winter's winter, but the silhouette of the tree against the sky, the shadows on the building were quite beautiful. And that was one of the things that drew me to that image. Seville is full of small buildings and every building's a different color, lots of yellow and pink and red. And again, the blue sky is almost part of that. There's no blue buildings, I don't think, but there are sort of earthy, warmer colors for the buildings and then the nice electric sky. And that relates to the sort of the fine grain of the environment. This one is about the invitation down that little laneway. The light on that red building kind of invites you to go down there to sort of want to explore that. And then the fact that this yellow building's in bright sunshine, that's not to scale the section, but you can see the southern sun coming down on that facade. Because there's a plaza there, you get a beautiful sunlit space. Otherwise, Seville is full of shady little alleyways. I could have started with the plan first, looking at the way that Plaza Alfalfa connects to its surrounding areas. You can come into from all sorts of places. And then the final one is a very sort of crappy drawing, but it's all about the way people have used the environment, the things that people have done to it, like putting the umbrellas out, the tables out, the blinds over the balconies have been taken by people, the fact that gives the urbanism its humanity. So there's just 6 drawings done very quickly. That's on my YouTube channel, which you can look at if you want to later on, the thing with the proper explanation. And so just going again, is in Granada, and this is in the days when I was still doing pencil drawings, but I don't know whether you know Granada at all, but this is where the Albaicin neighborhood starts from the town as it rises up to the hilltops opposite the Alhambra. And it's a nice church, and it's got a little plaza in front, and the plaza actually shifts your perspective. You walk up this little alleyway with all these interesting shops and the church is in front of you. Then you move to the left and you walk up towards the building. It's all pedestrian access only above there. This is about the layering of the drawing. There's the front layer, there's the middle layer, there's the third layer, the trees behind. The silhouette against the sky is always a really critical aspect about the quality of a place. The verticality is always very nice, and the mix of verticality. And this one is about the shadow. Shadows for me are a big part of my, because we come from a very sunny place in Queensland. We're 27 South. We have a subtropical climate, so shadows and shade are very important. And this is all about the incidental aspects of the orange trees and the decorations and the birds on the bell tower, the verandas. So all the kind of little details of people doing things and occupation and the things that people thought about more carefully. That's the view looking back the other way, also drawn by me. So these aren't exactly urban sketches, but what I would suggest is, as a process, is to do the drawing on the left and then go back after doing it and then do these abstracted 5 or 6 little drawings that explain the quality of that place. It's very good discipline. So just changing tack slightly, this is pages from the book, Drawing with Students. I encourage you all to start with 3-dimensional views from the first minute of the project. Don't wait till your plan's finished and try to put an elevation on and make it into architecture. Use massing models, just draw intuitively. And as you do urban sketching, you get a better sense of perspective generally, so you can create convincing perspectives without having to set anything up much, which is very helpful. But you need to be able to converse with yourself, the problem, and your teacher through diagrams and drawings that are trying to show the intent of what you're trying to do. You don't need to resolve it in absolute detail, but what key edges are, whether you're keeping vegetation, where vistas might be, where nodes are, where strong edges might be. So over the years, I've developed a range of diagrammatic line types that allows you to sort of have this sort of shorthand discussion in plans. And that was actually drawn during a student exercise I did with my students at QUT in 3 hours one day, some years ago. The other thing I've done with student projects is distill the essence of their plan. So this is one group I had, the same class as it turns out, and they had the interim submission. And so I just drew diagrams of each one of the schemes that I could remember that were quite distinctive. And again, you can see they're very simple, basic drawings. You can see where the walls are, where entry is, there's a little word says entry in a red triangle. There's cores located, there's planting, landscaping, plaza spaces, vistas through. So again, simple shorthand ways to shape what you're going to be designing rather than designing everything. I talked about drawing with people. I do a lot of that work over many years. I've probably done 150 workshops in 25, 30 years of working in urban design, which is a good way to work. And in terms of urban analysis, this is Oslo, and you're probably familiar with the Nolli Plan of Rome. And if you don't, Total can explain it because he knows better than I do. 1743, I think it was, as a drawing. It's the first figure ground drawing. But I do simplified figure ground drawings. I look for the key spaces, the hard spaces, the soft spaces, dotted lines for the parks, hatch lines for the plaza spaces, black shapes for the public buildings. So there's the castle, there's the guard, there's the National Theatre, there's the Parliament, the National Parliament, the local council building, university buildings, museums, etc. This drawing is quite old because now you'd have the Opera building and the other building they're building on the bottom left of it, which is behind the Westbarton station. So this is probably a 15-year-old drawing. But I'm not drawing every street. I'm trying to draw the streets that sort of structure and connect the key elements. It's like having a hierarchy of importance of streets. On the left-hand side, there's no streets through that space. They're all quite nice streets, but there's nothing in that bottom left part of the drawing that really needs to be drawn. And then the notion that buildings frame public spaces and activate public spaces. In Europe, that's sort of more natural than in Australia. Australia, we struggle a bit. Your streets tend to be narrower, so the buildings are closer together. Our streets tend to be wider with bigger setbacks. And so, you can have a 20-metre wide street and 12-metre setbacks total and one-storey buildings and, a very suburban environment. So these are kind of drawings that I do. And just as a way to discuss this interesting town that you live in or sit in, I got that off Google Earth. I got this off CAD Mapper, which is amazing. So the data you can get, that's a figure ground drawing. But I just began to do street views and draw lines and say, well, what are the key important streets, the key green spaces? That zigzag red line seems like a very busy street. That, I mean, this town is completely cut off from the water. It seems to me everywhere you turn, it doesn't meet the water very well. And I don't know why that would be the case, except for on the far right where that beautiful gable building is in the museum building, which on that island, which is quite spectacular. And then if you begin to look at the edge conditions, and admittedly, some of the buildings are not great buildings in my view. They sort of look like Swedish buildings from the 50s and 60s. They have good urban manners, but they don't have much joy in them. They've got little fine, tiny windows and brick bases and timber boarded above. And I think we can do a bit better than that. And what this doesn't show is where the key activity areas are, but there's that main hilltop plaza space off on the hilltop with the public buildings, not sure they are, but the two nice parks. Got quite a few streets with wider avenues of planting and the like. And then the red lines are sort of question marks, is that these could be celebrated spaces where you might want to go out and actually enjoy the water and sit in a cafe and have a beer. So that's just, you know, just a bit of kind of as a way to anchor into your place. And it's not trying to draw every street, it's trying to sort of be slightly selective of the main streets, the key streets.